Welcome to the AgriMinds podcast. If you're in agriculture and feeling the weight of responsibility, juggling work, family, and everything in between, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Casey Bull, coach, speaker, and founder of AgriMinds. Each week, we'll talk about the real side of leadership, how to think clearly, manage your time, set boundaries, and show up with intention, both at home and in the field. Let's get into today's episode. If you and I ran into each other in public and I said, "Hey, how are ya?" What would you say? If I had to guess, you would probably say, "I'm good. How are you?" Or maybe you would say something like, "Oh, I'm doing good. I'm busy, getting by, can't complain, living the dream." Are any of those sounding familiar to you? Those are such canned responses. Not that I'm trying to call you out, because I definitely say those things too, but I really want to know, how are you? Really, how are you? If I had to guess that answer, I would say you're probably not that great. You're probably just getting by. If you're being honest, if you're being truthful right now, would you say, "I'm actually really exhausted. I'm actually really overwhelmed. I'm just waiting on this thing to pass. I'm worried about my finances. I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about my future. I'm laying awake most nights thinking about stuff that I can't control. And honestly, I'm just trying to get by. I'm just trying to pay the bills. I'm just trying to just get through the day." Any of that resonating with you? Yeah, I thought so. In the last episode of this podcast, we talked about practical ways to calm our nervous systems when stress shows up. And after I got done recording that episode, I thought, I need to go a little bit further into this conversation. I feel like those tools matter. I feel like breath work is important, movement is important, being mindful is important. I think that they are helpful in regulating our bodies. However, I think we need to go a level deeper, because while, yes, stress relief can help us feel better, it doesn't always answer the much bigger question. And that is, why am I stressed in the first place? And here's the deal. I feel like when you try to manage your stress, or to push through stress, it's almost like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, or masking this much bigger thing, or taking Tylenol when you have a headache, right? But what's causing the headache? Why do you have the headache to begin with? And it might be something as simple as well, I haven't eaten today, or maybe it is from, stress or something else that's going on. But I think we should stop and ask ourselves, where's the stress coming from? And so today is kind of just a conversation around is stress actually the problem, or is there something much deeper going on here today? And something that I think a lot of people get wrong about stress is that they treat the stress as the problem. We want to eliminate stress. We want to manage the stress. We want to get over the stress. But what if stress isn't actually the problem? What if stress is actually a signal? What if it's just a signal or a messenger trying to tell us about this other big thing going on? And we talk about the warning light on your dashboard, right? The light isn't actually the problem. The thing that caused the light to come on is the problem. And so we're treating stress like this warning light, where we're just trying to address the light. And it's no. There's something else going on here. And I don't think that, one, many people have ever been taught to think about this before. They didn't know that they needed to think about it. But two, how to go about it, how to navigate those questions, that conversation. And so that's what we're going to dive into today. So just to kind of highlight, stress is your body's way of saying something needs attention. Pay attention to me. something's out of alignment, something's not working the way that it should. And I think the challenge that most of us have is that we're spending a lot of our time and our energy trying to make the light go away instead of actually understanding what the light is trying to tell us. We also try to ignore the light. If you are anything like my mechanic, oh my gosh, I took my vehicle to the mechanic one time because my light kept coming on my Jeep. And he was like, "Okay, cool. Well, I'll work on it. We'll try to figure out where it's coming from. You can take our loaner car." And I said, "Okay." So I jump in the loaner car and the light was on the dash in the loaner car. And when I got back, I was kind of joking. I said, "Well, it doesn't make me feel so bad that y'all's loaner car has a light going on." He goes, "Oh, no, no. We don't work on our own vehicles." And I'm like, "Oh, this sounds so real because it's a lot easier to help other people with their problems than it is to address our own, isn't it?" Are you feeling called out today? I feel like I'm calling myself out as I'm recording this. I'm getting a little bit flushed in the cheeks here. Anyway, the lights aren't going to go away on their own. I mean, maybe, but it's probably on for a reason. And so the important thing here is to figure out, what is this trying to tell me? What is the stress trying to tell me? Not necessarily how do I get rid of it, but what do I need to do about it? So before we go any further, though, I do feel like I need to acknowledge something just to make sure, if this is the very first time you're listening to this podcast and you and I don't know each other, I want to make sure that you know I get it. Agriculture is hard. And I know it's not just seasonally hard, but it is consistently hard. Like, it feels like a lot of things are working against us. You make decisions without having the full picture of information. I know that you are dealing with uncertainty all the time. I know that you invest a significant amount of money before you know what the outcome will be. And there's a lot of things affecting you that you can't control, like the weather and the markets, and when equipment decides to break down, or the people that you have in your circle, or regulations from the government, or expectations from family members that you're trying to be respectful of. Like, I truly, truly get it. And I know that most people outside of our industry won't fully ever understand that pressure. So when I talk about stress today, I want to make sure that you know I am not suggesting that anything is wrong, or that this is all in your head, or that you're a victim in all of this. What I am saying is, like, it's real. These are the realities that we are experiencing. But here's something else that I have learned, and I've talked about this in a couple of my most recent keynotes, is that you can have two people face maybe the exact same circumstance, or a very similar circumstance and experience, and they perceive it differently. They will have a very different experience of stress. And the reason is because stress isn't always about the situation. Stress is usually about how we are responding to the situation and what we're allowing it to do to us and how it affects us. Isn't that crazy? I'm going to restate that just in case you're driving and you missed it. But you can have two people go through the exact same thing and have a very different perspective and experience going through it. Isn't that wild to think about? Have you ever thought about why that happens? Like, let's just say somebody gets divorced, right? One person is really happy about it, and the other person might be very upset about it. And it's like, you guys went through the same process, but one person is perceiving it as freedom and one person is perceiving it as like failure and loneliness. Or let's just say, like, you lose a job. One person might be absolutely crushed about losing that job. Somebody else might go through the same thing and think, "Oh my gosh, finally, like, the chains are off. Like, this is my chance to start over." You could have multiple people going through the same thing, but they're going to view it differently because of how they are allowing that signal to inform them and what it's telling them. So it's less about the situation, but more about what that situation means for us and how we choose to respond to it. And this goes back to the 4 Agriminds pillars that I talk about all the time. we talk about time mastery, boundaries, leadership, and mindset. Those are kind of like the core fundamental pieces inside of Agriminds. And over the years, I have found that when stress starts showing up consistently, it's usually pointing to one of these areas. And so I want to use that as kind of like this cornerstone for us today in this episode, or think of it as like your diagnostic tool, if you will. And it's not meant to judge you or try to make you feel shameful or criticize. It's simply just giving us more information. It's just helping us understand. Think of it as like the tool that you plug in to tell you what the code means so that way you know what to work on. It's just giving us more information than we had before. So, what I'm going to do now is just walk you through the 4 pillars to see, kind of just do like a check. Okay, is it this area? Is it this area? Is it both of these areas? To see if we can get a little bit more clarity around where this stress is coming from and what it can mean for you. So, the very first pillar that I want to do a check in with is time mastery. This is often where stress will show up first because you're feeling the pressure of like maybe reacting to all the things going on and you don't feel like you have enough time to get everything done. Maybe every day feels like you're putting out those fires and your to-do list just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger and you feel like you can't keep up. And so you're starting to feel that stress and that overwhelm. So this is something where I want you to check in with yourself on, is seeing, is this the area where I'm feeling a lot of my stress coming in? Is it that everything that's on my to-do list is feeling important? Is it that I don't have control over my time? Is it that I'm feeling pulled in a million different directions? The question that I want you to ask yourself in this category to see if this is the pillar that is causing stress is ask yourself, am I stressed because I genuinely have too much to do? Or am I stressed because I haven't clearly decided what deserves my attention? Do you have your values determined? Because if you ask yourself, am I stressed because I have genuinely too much to do? That is a very different conversation than am I stressed because I haven't clearly decided what deserves my attention? Do you guys see the difference between those things? If not, pause it and process it for a second. But they are 2 very, very different conversations. And based on your answer, that may tell you if time mastery is the area that's bringing you stress. And I'll talk about what to do about that here in just a minute. If you're listening to this episode thinking, wow, this is exactly how I've been feeling lately, I want you to know you are not alone. Agriminds is not about adding one more thing to your already full plate. It's about helping you navigate those pressures, the stress, leadership, and responsibilities that you're already carrying with more clarity, support, and intention. Inside Agriminds, you'll find practical tools, coaching, leadership development, and a community full of agriculture professionals who truly understand the realities of this life. If you're ready to stop just surviving your days and start leading them with more intention, the link to learn more is in the show notes. The second pillar is boundaries. I think that this is something that comes up in pretty much every single one of my conversations, whether it's with clients, whether it's just with peers. But this is something that a lot of people are struggling with. It is a big source of stress for a lot of people because a lot of people are wearing multiple hats. They do have multiple responsibilities, and some of them aren't even ours to carry. We're taking responsibility for stuff that we should not be taking responsibility for. We are saying yes, even though we really want to say no. We are solving problems that other people should be solving. We are taking responsibility and taking on the pressures for other people's well-being, and it's just not our responsibility. Eventually, that's going to show up as exhaustion. Eventually, that's going to feel like shame. It's going to feel like you're not worthy enough because you're depending on other people. And I think I've said this several times, but I think a lot of people have boundaries misunderstood. because boundaries don't require approval by anybody. You do not need anybody's permission to set a boundary. That is a request. You're getting those two things mixed up. There is a difference between a request and a boundary. A request is you ask somebody and they have the ability to say yes or no. A boundary you set and they either respect it or they don't. And if they don't, that's a much different conversation. So ask yourself, where in your life are things feeling like they need a boundary? Or where are you allowing things to happen in your life that go against your values or against what you want out of your life? Are you feeling overcommitted somewhere? Are you feeling like you're giving more than you're getting? Are you feeling like people are disrespecting your boundaries? If that's the case, again, I'll share some what to do next here in a second, but boundaries might be the area where you're getting a lot of your stress from. The third pillar is leadership. And when I talk about leadership, I'm not just talking about leading employees. I'm talking about also leading yourself. Leadership often means making decisions, having those difficult conversations, taking ownership, addressing issues before they become bigger problems. And sometimes stress shows up because we already know what needs to happen. We're just avoiding it for some reason. And maybe it's because we don't know how to have that conversation. Maybe it's because we don't know how to make the decision and have our back on it. So we're feeling self-doubt. Maybe it's a change that you've been putting off or asking for help or setting expectations. Sometimes the stress isn't coming from the problem itself. It's coming from carrying that problem without addressing the problem. And that burden is just going to get heavier and heavier over time. Like, yeah, maybe you've been able to identify it, but if you're not doing anything about it, it's not doing you any good. So the conversation I want you to have with yourself on this one is like, what am I avoiding here? What decision have I been postponing? What areas do I feel like I am not addressing? Maybe leadership is the area of either self or of others that is causing you the stress. Maybe it's not feeling confident in yourself. Maybe it's not feeling worthy enough for whatever thing. Maybe it's because you don't know how to have those conversations with other people. And if that's the case, that's okay. But leadership might be the area that's causing you some stress. And the fourth pillar is mindset. And this is a powerful one because I think it influences every other pillar, to be honest with you. Now, mindset isn't about pretending that everything is positive, right? Like not putting a positive spin on everything. That is not what I'm talking about. It's not about ignoring the reality. It's about recognizing, how are we interpreting reality? Are you spending your energy on things that you can control or things that you can't? Are you preparing for challenges? Are you catastrophizing them? Are you responding to circumstances in a negative way or like a victim mentality? Or are you trying to think about things through a growth and abundance mindset? Are you reacting emotionally to every setback? Sometimes the situation isn't creating all the stress. Sometimes it's the story that we're telling ourselves about the situation that seems to be adding to it. And when we change the way that we look at the challenge, we often change how we experience it. So maybe the mindset around what's causing this stress is the actual issue. So let's bring all of this together now. So the next time that stress shows up, I don't want you to immediately ask, like, how do I make this feeling go away? How do I just find relief from stress? And again, I think the breath work and stuff that we talked about in the most recent episode are helpful. So maybe you start with, okay, let me get grounded. Let me calm my nervous system down. Let me move through this stressful feeling and get to a place of like clear-headedness. And then we can address what that root cause was and work through the four pillars. Is it a time mastery issue? Was it a boundaries issue, a leadership issue, a mindset issue? Because stress is, again, it's often pointing to one of those areas. And once you know where the signal is coming from, then you can start doing something about it. And I'm not saying that you'll be able to completely eliminate it forever. It's not a one and done thing. And maybe it takes some practice and some time. That's what we call growth, is that you're learning and you're gaining more and more information so you know how to show up differently, one small tweak at a time. And maybe it's one conversation or one boundary or one decision or one habit, one perspective shift that could change it all for you. And so it might just start with one decision at a time. If there was one thing that I want you to remember from today's episode, it would be this: stress is not a bad thing. Stress is just a signal. And there are ways to move through stress and there are ways to overcome it. It's not inevitable, though. Stress is a good thing. Stress does create momentum sometimes, right? If you're not feeling stressed out, then maybe you wouldn't be motivated to turn the thing in at the deadline. Or if you didn't feel stressed out, maybe you wouldn't notice, oh, this is something that doesn't feel aligned to me. It's information. It's a signal. It's okay to have stress. Chronic stress, long-term stress over and over and over again, that's where it starts to get dangerous. And so stress is not a bad thing. It's what you do with that stress that could be determining whether this is helpful or not. Stress is not proof that you're failing at something. It's not proof that you're weak. And it's not always the problem. Most often, stress is just information. It's just a signal. It's just a warning light. And when you give yourself the permission to embrace the stress and just say, what is this trying to teach me? You can overcome it and move through it a lot faster. Remember, that's just your mind and your body's way of saying, hey, can you pay attention, please? So in the last episode, we talked about calming the nervous system. That's important. However, I do think you need to go a step further and ask yourself, what's causing this stress? Understanding that root cause of it is going to help us have a better quality of life. It's going to help our physical bodies. It's going to help our relationships. And honestly, that's what it's all about. Life is not meant to just be lived in this very, very, very high state, high stress, high anxiety, 24/7. So this week, I want to challenge you to spend 5 minutes, just 5 minutes with a notebook or maybe the notes app on your phone. And I want you to type up or write down this question: what is my stress trying to tell me right now? And then look at the 4 Agrimind pillars. They're broken down on my website in case you need some reference, but time mastery, boundaries, leadership, and mindset. Which one of those needs your attention right now? And once you identify that source, you won't be guessing anymore. You'll have some clarity and it'll give you clarity on what that next step is. So that way you can start finding a little bit more peace. Okay. Thank you for joining me for another episode on the Agriminds podcast. And until next time, I hope that you take care of yourself. I hope that you keep learning and keep growing and keep gaining awareness so that way you feel a little bit more aligned and at peace. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, please, please, please send me a message, follow me on Instagram, and just know that I am rooting for you. Thanks for being here today. If this episode resonated with you, make sure that you're following the Agriminds podcast so you don't miss what's coming next. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, send this their way. These are the conversations that more people in agriculture need to hear. Talk to you next time.